This hit goes out to you, Mr. Wick.
42 regular, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so it begins.
Hello, friends. I am sitting next to great friends, the director and star of John Wick Chapter 4, Chad Stahelski, and Keanu Reeves. It is truly an honor to be sharing the same oxygen as you guys. I really mean that. And growing up, I feel like people around me, I would always hear them use this phrase, women love bad guys, to which I would always respond, bad guys like John Wick. John Wick to me has always been this more than meets the eye action hero. You know, he's in touch with his emotions. He has this Chuck Norris memeability to him. He has this unrelentless motivation and temperance. He knows when to strike, which is something I wish I could embody when I have a crush on someone. Anyway, so that is why I love John Wick, and I'm so excited to talk to you guys about Chapter 4. From the looks of the trailer, it looks just insanity. John's kicking the global hornet's nest. He's going after the high table, not running from them anymore. And it just looks bigger and better than ever. And that's such an accomplishment. And with any accomplishment, for me, I always feel like the incremental steps along the way are the most delicious part. When I go camping, I'm I can't wait to buy s'mores supplies. So since it's been 4 years, Keanu, since we've seen the last Wick, I wanted to know what got you so excited about jumping into Wick this time around? Is it getting fitted for pristine Kevlar suits? Is it learning Japanese? What are you I can't wait?
The story we have to tell. And the chance to play the character and tell the story. I felt like there was a reason for Chapter 4. You know, we had a reason, and I was just looking forward to tell the story and play the role.
Was there one part of the story in particular that you were oh, I can't wait to train for this, or can't wait for this scene?
Yeah, there's always tons of stuff. Chad was saying we're bringing the cars back, so I was do I get to drive a car? And he's yes. And I'm okay, cool. And then he's start training. It's tomorrow at 9. And I'm cool. And so, yeah, there was that, nunchucks. And so there was a lot of skills to learn. And but really the story and the cast of characters that came out of developing the story and then turning into the story we were telling was really exciting.
And you guys are so good at story. It's not just action. There is always this compelling story that you're on the edge of your seat for because of Mr. Stahelski. Keanu,
the actors that we work with.
And the actors and everyone. I read that you said that this was one of the hardest and most difficult films that you've done. How do you feel Chapter 4?
No, not one,
the hardest. How do you feel this pushed you beyond the limits that you thought you were capable of?
I think it's just the opportunities that I had in the film to try and do some action, and that for me is bringing the audience along dramatically, to be able to see the struggles that John's having and trying to overcome, fighting for his life, and so it's not only the intensity of the action but also the timeline of it, just with the months of training and then the filming.
Yeah, I know you put a lot into it.
Yeah.
9
but that's its gift.
Yeah. But that's also what's so exciting about it. Chad, I imagine for you, first and foremost, seeing you go from being Keanu's stunt guy, in The Matrix, to being a full-fledged director has been so inspiring to watch. And I just want to thank you and commend you for letting scenes breathe and shooting action in such a beautiful and intentional way. Rick Rubin says this about wrestling, but he says it's everyone just trying to put on the best show ever. Yeah. And that's why it feels like you're watching ballet instead of watching a fight when you watch a John Wick movie. There's 14 action sequences in Chapter 4, 4 times more than any other John Wick film. I wish I could ask you about all of them, but let's start with the Arc de Triomphe scene that I saw in the trailer. It looks so dope, so aggressive. Can you break down that scene for us and tell us the challenges that it posed?
Sure. I think, I guess to Keanu's point, how we put them all together is okay, what's the story? How do you, I don't think we've ever really thought, how do we go bigger or better? It's just how do you get more story out of it and how do you expand? So when we did something like that, it's not just about cars, it's about what we're trying to do with the cars, where we're trying to go, where we're trying to get to, and what are you learning about John in the sequence. So for Arc de Triomphe, we kind of had this idea of look, we do a lot of the martial art fights and we do a lot of the driving. We're let's just put them together. And that's kind of how that one went. And able to control your environment, and able to do, I think we have 30 cars, 30 stunt drivers, and another 30. I think we put in a few digital background cars. But then with our fight team, we put that in. So Keanu is actually driving against other drivers, against traffic as we're going around in a big circle.
Oh my God.
Trying to drift and weave in between cars. And Keanu is so good with the tactical firearm work that he's actually shooting, reloading.
I don't do a reload
Sorry,
in the car.
no one. We're shooting and doing all the stuff as we're going, as he's drifting a car, which I think is pretty cool. And then when he gets out of the car, he's having his fight tactical sequence in and amongst live traffic.
Because there's other gangs coming after me.
Because there's all kinds of
There's
stuff.
an open contract on John Wick.
We've done the massive gauntlet.
It's
and
a
that
gauntlet.
was probably the most logistical, tricky one.
Yeah.
You don't want to hit John Wick with a bus.
And,
unless you
yeah,
need
but a
to.
lot of people are getting hit by cars.
We have
and
a lot
flying
of-
in the air and
I think
shooting
we have
them.
over
They're
2
shooting at
dozen car
me.
hits in it. Yeah, a lot of stunt guys getting hit by cars.
It's so insane.
I'm throwing people in the cars.
It's amazing. I was reading that you guys were training for this, or, because you couldn't shut all the lanes down at an abandoned airport in Berlin.
Outside of Berlin. Yeah.
Wow.
That's where we started.
These ideas, Chad, and these fights are so good. And the imagination isn't restrained like the physical world is. So I've always wanted to ask you, did that idea start from a much grander starting point? Or was that it?
Geez. Again, there's so many different inputs, I guess. You start with a cast member, right? And you see what the limitations are. And then when you Keanu, they're hard to reach limitations. So if you have a guy that puts that much time into driving, into martial arts, into shooting, you can expand everything. And then we get some of the best stunt teams out there, and we kind of all collectively get together and we bring our ideas in about how does it, again, it's always like, we try to avoid a lot of shoe leather. Meaning we just don't go A to B. Instead of just doing a long 16-block car chase, we go, let's just drive around in a circle. I know that sounds silly, but you'll have more time to do things, and you'll have more things to do. So every event is a gag to a gag to a gag to a gag to a gag. So it seems a lot more exciting, a lot more busy than just driving straight and steering.
But that can be really good too.
Yeah, it can. With the right time, we just want to try something different that other shows hadn't tried.
I love it.
So it's all based too, just like the fight scenes. If you keep your cast in, it's the dance mentality, right? You're seeing Gene Kelly, and if Gene Kelly's doing all the dancing, you can get more incredible shots. So if I have Keanu, and Keanu's doing the driving and the fighting and the shooting, I can stay in shots that a lot of other shows can't get. That's kind of our little secret.
The Gene Kelly of fighting. I mean, he talked about the time you put in, Keanu, and it's so true. Like, you were brushing up on your driving skills for 9 months. Like, the commitment.
No, I wasn't brushing up on my skills for 9 months. But
Little brushing, but some new skills. Some great.
no, I mean, I got to throw some 180s. John Wick training is extraordinary. I get to work with such extraordinary people and get, taught. I'm getting one-on-one. I'm getting the tools, whether it's a car set up right, the space to do things, who are very patient with me. And so I'm really giving, don't it up. I'm basically there. Come on, Reeves. And, for me, as he speaks about, what he can do with what I can do is trying to help realize what Chad can do, right? And so I have a limit, and Chad doesn't. So the vision. So which is tough because I'm like the limiter, right? So.
Well, to me, you, and to most people watching these, you are boundless. And I wanted to ask you about fear, because fear can be so comedically subjective. Like, before I go live on TV, I experience fear. I get really scared. And yet I'll go guerrilla trekking without a flinch. And it's so funny to me. Do you experience fear when you're pulling off these crazy fight sequences? Or is this just like a guerrilla trek for you?
I think it's something in between. I think going through the training, there's a hope, like there's a goal. I hope I can do that. I hope I can do this. And then you go through the training where you hope that it can become second nature. And so that part is kind of guerrilla trekking in a way where you have, I can't speak to guerrilla trekking. So I feel pressure. I feel nervous. But also concentrated. And I think that's where, you don't want fear to cripple you or hold you back, but you also like the excitement and fear of the intensity for the goal. But then there's also sometimes where you're like, I got it.
I love that.
But not very often. Because then also during the middle of a fight, you also have to go unconscious too,
Yeah.
but you have to be present unconsciously.
You also have this ability to say so much without using words, Keanu. Like in every role you've ever done. Do you have an inner monologue or mantra that you hold on to for John when you're fighting in these sequences?
Yeah, don't die. Live.
Truly?
I mean, in the
Not
movie.
today.
I mean, in the movie sense. But I mean, I think it's like, what does the character want? And the character is trying to survive, and he's fighting for his freedom. And so that is the core thing that's in him. But he also comes from the dark.
There's some dark thoughts in there too.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to kill me, or if I'm taking revenge, and I think that's part of the John Wick story, because he's trying to integrate as a person, the John and the John Wick, the man and the assassin.
Speaking of mantras, there's a lot of new themes in this movie that I'm really excited about that we're going to get to experience through some new characters. Like, I feel like we're going to get some brotherhood, some hope, some father-daughter relationships, which I love because mine is very sacred to me, through characters played by the epic and legendary Donnie Yen and Hiroyuki Sanada. What can you tell us about those two characters, their history with John? And then Keanu, I would love to hear what it was like reuniting with Sanada after doing 47 Ronin with him.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, we wanted to try, again, to Keanu's earlier point. We usually sit around after we finish 3. We're like, okay, we're done. Then we go on tour and we're like hanging out. We both some ideas and start writing on napkins. And you're like, okay, what do you think? Oh. And it literally came about that simple of like, okay, well, is this worth doing another one? If we don't have a story, it's not really worth it. We had a story. But a lot of it came through like brotherhood and hope, just kind of what you said. And we're like, oh, we have some ideas. We want friendship. We want to see causality about John's choices. And one of the easiest ways to see causality is through relationships. So we wanted to form some really solid relationships with people that you hadn't quite met yet in the John Wick world. And, instantly we go to, best friends. Okay, what's that camaraderie? What would it be like to be John's best friend, and what were the penalties you'd pay for being his friend? And that's kind of how we put Donnie Yen's character and Hiroyuki Sanada's character. All three of them good friends, just the other two on different sides of, unfortunately, the scale. That's kind of balancing out what John's...
The high table.
Yeah, the high table. One's on, or being forced to be on the high table side. The other one's choosing to, I guess, rebel against the high table and the consequences and the actions they do to both support and befriend John. And we thought that was really interesting. And again, I don't know, I guess we just really like the father-daughter aspect of things, something.
Yeah.
And that's how Donnie Yen's character has a daughter that we briefly meet. And then Hiroyuki Sanada's character's daughter, played by Rina Sawayama, she's actually a big part of the film, at least in the first act. And we used both as leverage points and both as kind of, reflections of who the men are.
Yeah.
And they're, to Keanu's point, duality of who they are.
What a dope addition, too. Her music is so good.
We didn't know that.
What?
We were looking to cast, and I was on the internet looking, and I saw on YouTube on the side, it was Rina in this orange wig for a previous... I didn't know anything about her. I just thought that was a cool wig, because we were looking for an interesting look for the character Akira, and then I clicked on it, and we went down the rabbit hole. And we're like, oh my God, like she's a pop star. That's cool. She can dance. She must be good at fights. It was like that. And we got her people on the phone. I managed to talk to her. I'm like, hi, this is going to sound really weird. I'm Chad, direct John Wick's. Have you ever seen a John Wick? And she went crazy on the phone. She's like, I love the John. I'm like, would you like to be in one?
Wow.
And that's kind of how it just... We flew to Berlin, got to meet Keanu. We all talked and see if she was up for it. And
the training began.
Yeah, the training began.
It's insane. What a cool story.
Yeah, no, she came out. She's so full of energy. Just talk about... You can see why she's been successful in that realm.
Yeah.
She showed up ready to go from London, just came to Berlin where we were training. And I don't think missed a day. It was just in it, and it was a different world for her.
Wow.
And she was great.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah, she's great.
What was it like reuniting with Sanada?
Really special. We had done a film together called 47 Ronin, and it was a great experience. And so to get to act with him again was something very special. He's a very profound cat, and so to have that past with him to be able to have that connection and then to bring that to these characters in John Wick, I think helped with the seen unknown but felt kind of thing. And he's such a gentleman and consummate artist. And
Very authentic. And he really helped us out with the underlying themes.
yeah,
We have a pretty heavy Japanese underlying theme.
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
we had some it's been a long time since you and I have been good men. Was it? It's been a long time since you and I have been good men. A long time. No, we stopped being good men a long time ago. Yeah.
Oh, what a line. I love that. It's so good. And to have like their talents in these films is just so cool too. Like I saw in the trailer, there's a sword fight, or Donnie Yen was holding swords, and I love swords. And Chad, I was in Malibu the other day watching a surfer reading waves. And he was just like waiting for the perfect wave. And I was like, man, I wish I knew how to read waves. And sometimes I feel like that watching fighting sequences. I'm like, oh man, if I just knew more, I could appreciate it that much better. In the same way a cinematographer picks a certain lens for a scene, how do you choose like which fighting style is correct for a scene? And are we seeing fusions that maybe the average person like wouldn't pick up on in this movie?
Yes to both, I think. How you choose, well, we've been doing choreography for a very long time, and all the guys on our team all the people on our team, men and women, are from many different styles. I don't know, you just get it. It's like, what clothes do you wear? Do you dress up for the restaurant, the club? What do you want to say with it? You look at the cast members, you look at their body type, you look what they can do, and sometimes you just kind of meet in the middle. It's like the ever-tightening circle of perfection.
Yeah.
You start with these ideas, and sometimes they don't work, but sometimes they go. We originally started with literally tactical shooting, and judo. And like, that's just, we wanted to grab people because we thought John Wick was a grabber. And he was really good with guns. So, I mean, guns have worked the same way for quite some time, or firearms in general, of just doing reloads and all that stuff. It's just on most shows up until right around the military show started not too long ago, you didn't see reloads. You didn't see people clear chambers. The guns always worked. They didn't jam. We just went, well, let's just do what's real. And we'll show our guys doing the reloads and doing all the stuff. And we put that together with close quarter Aikido, Aikijitsu, Judo, Sambo, all the grappling arts. And then we just kind of added in a few other things. And it's like, we call it the blood sport mentality. You have the Thai boxer fight the judo guy. And the problems that could cause, that's what's interesting, right? It's like two people who speak different languages trying to communicate. If you have both of us speaking English now, we communicate as would be expected. The other way to do it is very subversive. How do you communicate with me if I don't speak a word of English? And if I've never met you before, if I don't know anything about our social habits? It would be interesting to just... And that's what we do with martial arts. We figure what are the interesting combinations.
And synthesize.
And synthesize.
And mix.
Yep.
Right?
So you have Donnie, who's amazing at modern-day fighting, traditional wuxia film and kung fu. Then you give him a sword cane, you make him blind, and you give him a gun. Yeah, there's going to be some synthesizing there. And sometimes we're not always sure what we're going to get. That's why we're crazy about rehearsal time. And we do all these chunks and ideas, and we sit together, and as we watch, it's like forming a dance. And you see how they react together.
God, what an incredible answer to that. Thank you both. For so many questions. You mentioned rehearsal. The Marquee, people are really excited about the Marquee, and played by Bill Skarsgård, main adversary. I'd love to know what challenges he present to John that John hasn't faced before. And his suits are so killer. Shout out to Paco Delgado, I think, right? The costume designer on this. Like, they're so good. And it made me wonder, do you train with suits on? Like when you guys are learning choreography? Because I won't even show up to Thanksgiving in jeans.
Yeah, I'll start. I trained with a suit on in the first one, and then I'll do it at the end, and then basically got back to where I just do the jacket now because the costume designer knows how to make the pants.
But we rehearse with the belt, the tackle belt holsters,
Yeah,
the suit jacket. You kind of have to.
Yeah.
at some point. But yeah, Bill Skarsgård's amazing, and Paco's amazing, and Bill's playing a villain, but
He doesn't think he's the villain.
no, and
Bill's the new sheriff in town.
yeah,
Coming to make a statement.
yeah. And he has a lot of power.
Yep, a lot of power, and he's playing by the rules. He's doing everything he can. trying
Yeah.
to clean up the mess that John has made over the last 3 movies. He's got something to prove.
And he has ambition.
A lot of ambition.
Let's talk about this mess, because you were also mentioning reloading, and that's the best part of John Wick. And Keanu, I'm sure you know this, but the science community recently named a molecule after you that can kill microbes so efficiently because you were just so deadly, my friend, in every role you do. What is the body count on John Wick 4? And how long is the movie? Because I know it's the longest out of all the previous ones.
To be really honest with you, my editorial team has gone through the final cut, and they actually know the calculated thing. I asked not to be informed. I kind of want it to be a surprise when I figure it out. I don't know the exact. I have a pretty good idea, a rough, but I don't know the exact number. Runtime without credits, with just movie end to end, I think is 2 hours and 37 and 54. It's almost 2 hours 38 minutes, and then there's like 10 minutes of credits because we shot in like 5 countries.
Nice. And the body count, Keanu?
I have no idea. I think, yeah, I never know those things coming out of the film.
When I first got to speak to you, it was virtually for Bill and Ted, the
Oh,
last
wow.
Bill and Ted. And you said something to me that has always replayed in my head in your voice. And you said, we're all just humans on a rock in space. And you
Yeah.
gave me like this virtual group hug, which was so cool. Because I think it was like right in the height of the pandemic. But it made me want to ask you, would you ever like to see John fall in love again in these movies?
Yeah, that's yeah, there's a part that wants to honor, for me personally, that wants to honor his grief. And, but then if I thought of what Helen would want, I think she'd want John to fall in love again.
Well, I love the combination of Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves. You guys both you've worked together for so long. You have this consistency that's so rare in franchises like this. Chad, I know you used to teach Jeet Kune Do at Inasanto Martial Arts
Long
Academy.
time ago.
And the principles, the principles of that fighting style are simplicity, directness, and freedom. And so I wanted to know, do you guys have core principles between the both of you that you adhere to when working together?
Probably unspoken, but yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, they're not formalized. Yeah.
I think John Wick 1 was made just for a love of action movies, the old 70s kind of action movies. Like, it wasn't really a plan to do, like, we don't mind cutting. We don't mind doing shorter takes or anything like that. It's just, we do what feels right. It feels that we both like movies that breathe. Like, I like having John Wick walk into a building. I like seeing that. I like the aftermath, what happens after the quick fight scene, So I think we both have that similar taste for pacing and for shots, and I guess
A common taste for cinema.
I was just gonna say
I'm
we
sorry.
both like cinema. You're right. We both like cinema. John Wicks are made, the color, the look, the composition. We both like sitting in a theater. We like that magic. Always love going to a theater. So I think we both kind of went, well, if we're gonna make an action movie, let's make it for the theater. That's kind of what we've always adhered to, and it's that, I don't know, the unspokenness, I guess you could say. There's always a subtext or an undertone, and I think that's why people like the character, because we don't just spill it all out. You have to actually watch it, and you can make your own assumptions, which I think is cool.
Yeah, I think it's a cinema, common taste, hopes, ambitions, dreams, storytelling.
Love of movies.
Love making movies.
John Wicks are just because
like
we love
making
making them, and I think they're all
Yeah.
tributes, like
There's a
to
lot of
Berlucci and Leone and
Yeah.
Tarantino and all the old westerns and Lee Marvin and Steve McQueen. It's all in there.